2024. Let's start off with a call to order and then the roll call.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Richard Budney.
Here.
Frank Fresco.
Here.
I'd like to all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get into the other agenda items, I would entertain a motion tonight for an amendment to the rules and to add 2 items to the agenda for discussion purposes only. We can't vote on it because it wasn't on the agenda earlier, but I think for some discussion, we would like to add 2 agenda items.
I'll make the motion to.
Well, let me.
Sorry.
Under VA, under new business, that's one of the items I'd like to add. It would be the chairperson for the Personnel Committee resignation. And under VB, old business, I'd like to add 1, the city attorney job description update. And VB2, employee survey update. So that would be under 5. There would be a 5A and a 5B, new business and old business. Is there a motion?
I will make that motion.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no no's, the motion carries. Okay, let's go on for the rest of the agenda here, or continue on to 2B. Citizen comment period. Oh, let me say, I'd like to welcome Mayor Nelson to our meeting this evening. John is here to
Good evening and thank you.
to share with us whatever he can share or wants to share. So, but I'd like to welcome him officially to our meeting. Okay, approval of the minutes from 9/16/2024.
Make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Okay, having a motion made and second to approve the minutes, is there any further discussion of the minutes? Any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved. Tonight we have a presentation, item number 4, on the 2005 benefit renewals. This was up at the last meeting. There were some final adjustments that have been made to what we're going to be voting on and sending to council, so I'll let the lead take over on that. Whoever wants to volunteer to be the lead.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Number one, we had the presentation to put up on the screen, but we're having technology difficulties. So I think everybody has what I'm going to go through.
Is his mic on? Sorry.
It is, but you have to have it real close to you.
Is that, I mean, literally like right here. Is that working now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So hopefully everybody has the packet. I'm going to reference the various items in the packet since we can't project it. So I'm going to, the background, your administrative team, we spend months preparing for open enrollment. We are in a much, much different spot than where we were last year, which tells us that the actions we took last year actually worked, and I'll explain that more as we move forward. There are a couple of statutory things, actually 3 statutory things that have to happen for 1/1/25. Number one, the IRS dictates what the minimum high deductible, qualified high deductible health plan can be. We'll talk about that. In the same, I guess, vein as the high deductible, the deductible on the high deductible plan, we also have to change the HRA, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then we need to make some changes to NICE Healthcare, and we'll talk about those as we move forward. Recommendation under the recommendation detail, number one, stop-loss insurance is, I think you're all aware, is a critical component to risk mitigation for a self-funded health plan. Our recommendation is to transition from a $90,000 specific deductible to $100,000. That saves roughly 9% off the renewal, so the increase would be 6.74% on that component of the fixed costs. Okay. Secondarily, in regards to that compliance piece that we referenced, we need to increase the individual component of the family plan to $3,300, up from $3,200 this year. The single plan deductible doesn't have to change, and the recommendation is to keep that unchanged. As a result of that, we also need to change the HRA access point, the dollar amount that members have to incur before the HRA can be available. So we have to increase that by $50 for single, from $1,600 to $1,650, and by $100 for family, from $3,200 to $3,300. No change to the city's contribution amount. That will remain at $1,250 for single and $2,500 for family. We're recommending that you stay with UMR. They have been a long-term it's 3 years now. I think, third year. They've been a good partner. They administer the health plan, the HRA, and COBRA services for the city. In addition to that, from a pharmacy perspective, we did a request for proposal, and we are recommending that you stay with ServU RX as a result of their change in cost. Overall, the projected plan increase, the health plan increase, is 2.91%, and that's for the plan year 2025.
A question on the stop loss coverage. How close to the deductible did we get for last year?
So every year you have some that exceed it. I don't have that exact number with me. I can look it up and perhaps get back to you, but 2 or 3 people generally will exceed that in any given year.
Compared to other years?
Large claimants, in terms of the number is down. Last year was an inordinate year. You had some significant large claims. It's down this year from last year. Generally, we will see, and we target 2 to 4 claims. I don't have the exact number with me, but I can look it up, like I said. In that vein, what happens if you don't periodically increase the deductible because of inflation, you're paying more in premium than you're getting in value. And think of it this way, medical inflation right now is about 8.5%. So if we keep the deductible at $90,000, you're going to get an increase in premium that actually is double, or because it's called leverage trend. A $90,000 claim this year, the stop-loss carrier would not have paid any reimbursements on. That $90,000 claim at 8.5% is roughly $7,500. So next year, all things being equal, they would have paid $7,500, and they're going to charge you for that at the renewal. So we haven't increased it in 3 years? 4 years. Yeah. So it would be good sense based on the fact that trend is as high as it's been in a number of years to increase that to keep up with it, and it reduces, like I said, the premium by roughly 9%. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
And when I'm done, I can look up the actual number of specific hits this year.
I was just wondering how close we're getting to that deductible and I know health costs are going up, so that deductible probably needs to be.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that deductible is on a per person or per member basis.
Okay.
So I can't remember a year in which you had none, but it's generally in that 2 to 4 range. So, okay.
I think we had 4 last year, and I think we've had 3 so far this year.
That would be typical. problem was last year. There was one very significant one. So it is a key component of the risk mitigation component of self-funded plan. Okay. Good with that? I'll keep going. Okay, so item number 2, Nice Healthcare. Sorry. Nice Healthcare. In 2025, the recommendation is to only offer it to employees that are on, and their dependents that are on the city's health plan. Prior to 2025, it has been offered to all employees of eligible employees of the city. Technically, we're only supposed to be offering it to the employees that are on the health plan. Okay. In addition to that, yeah, go ahead.
What would that mean in terms of numbers of people that would be participating in the NICE program if that change is in effect? Do more people enroll, or do you suspect more people enroll, or will some drop off?
Enroll in the health plan or in NICE?
Yeah.
So it will reduce the amount you pay for NICE because it's on a per employee per month basis. So that component will go down. I don't suspect somebody will necessarily get on your health plan because they have access to NICE, but that could happen. It's really hard to say. Somebody that, we don't suspect that we actually suspect it will be a cost savings, not a cost increase.
Excuse me. Could you refresh me a little bit? Nice Healthcare, is that a proactive plan where people will come and you can advise them on how to better manage their health? Is that what this is?
So Nice Healthcare is actually a virtual on-site clinic. You've had this since 2021, sound right? Or
November of 2020.
okay, so right at the end of COVID, it gives people the opportunity to access care, either a physician's assistant or nurse practitioner. They can access behavioral health care, physical therapy. They get medications at no cost, a certain 500 or so medications, and they can do it all virtually. If there's a need for a provider to come to their home, they can do that. You know, if they need an x-ray or something of that sort, they can do that. And up until now, it's been totally free to city employees and their dependents. As of 1/1, we legally need to charge something for it because the ACA basically, the Consolidated Appropriations Act with COVID allowed it to be available at no cost for high deductible health plans. So that's a lot of words. Basically, it's access to virtually free care for your members to help reduce costs associated with the actual health plan. That's the point of it.
You had said behavioral. Would that be like psychology if you had a child that had a problem?
Mm-hmm. That also would be done virtually, and that's included in the program.
So then what we're saying is that only the employees under the city plan and those that would not be eligible to use this anymore?
So people that are on the health plan,
That are employees are on.
the employees and their dependents, spouses and children, can use it. Those that are not on the health plan, it won't be available to them as of January 1st.
So to help me understand, if someone is married and they're on their husband's plan, and the husband's not an employee of the city, they could not use this anymore.
Correct. Yep. And there's a lot of rationale behind that, but our legal team believes that it's a separate standalone plan, which means you have to create, basically you have to treat that just like you do your health plan. You would have to offer them standalone COBRA coverage. It's subject to ERISA, but the requirements of ERISA, you have to have a separate summary plan description. So it creates a lot of potential compliance-related issues that is not worth the cost associated with.
Do you have any number you could tell us as to how many people would be affected by this that are on the plan now
get de-identified utilization numbers, but not by individual. So,
Question. Because this is new to me and I'm new to this committee, for employees, if their spouse offers insurance coverage for them, do they have to go with their spouses or can they choose either way? I know like some employers, for example, mine, full-time career job, if I were married and my spouse had insurance that I could be covered under, I wouldn't be able to have coverage.
so great question. There are multiple ways to do that. You can charge a spousal surcharge, or you can have a spousal carve-out, where if the spouse has access to coverage, they need to take it. They can't be on the city's plan. We have not implemented that at this point. Something we've talked about can be perceived very negatively, especially when it's a public entity, compared to a private entity. So,
Thank you.
we've talked about family savings plan and all of that kind of stuff, which is another way to go down that path.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Did I address your question?
Yes, sir, you did. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so where was I here? The top of, I'm not sure what page this is, but the top of the second page for the request for council action. Co-payment introduction, we talked about that. Due to federal regulations, we need to start charging again for non-preventive care. And again, it's a nominal cost. It's $5. Dental, the projected increase is 6.89%. That's about a little over, well, just over $10,000 annually. That's on the Delta self-funded plan. There is an optional HMO as well. Life and disability insurance, renew with Prudential. They gave us an increase on both the life and the long-term disability, but we were able to get them to reduce the increase, eliminate the increase on the LTD. They're asking for 5% on the group life, and both of those would be guaranteed for 2 years to 2027. And then, based on the fact that the increase is 2.91% for the health plan, we're recommending that we increase the employee contributions by the 2.91, and obviously the city's increase would also be 2.91. So, both would share in that increase. Fiscal impact, the 6.74% stop loss increase, if you agree to go to the $100,000 deductible, reflects a balanced approach to managing premium growth. We want you to best utilize your capital, and we think paying 15% at the $90,000 is not the best use of it. And as I talked about, keeping up with the medical trend or inflation. The dental insurance increase to 6.89% will equate to about a $10,447, not about, it's the exact number, to the budget. And then updating the employee contributions are designed to ensure that financial sustainability will continue to offer will enable the city to offer competitive benefits. And there's plenty in the self-insurance fund to cover unplanned expenses as we move forward. In addition to, go ahead.
Is this the first year that we're going to increase the 2.91? Have we done that historically in the past? A dollar for dollar kind of a thing? This is
Last year, if you remember correctly, the city took more of the hit on the increase than what the employees got.
okay.
This year it's a little, I don't know how Danielle calculated her amounts, it's not completely 2.91% across the board. When I looked at it, some of the increases go up 2%, some of them are 2.7%. So they're a little off that 2.9 number, but it's around that number to account for that increase.
So it'd be very close to a dollar for dollar.
Yep.
Yeah, both sides.
Last year was an actual anomaly. We have not had an increase like that, I don't know, in a long, long time.
In terms-
We had no changes for about
Yeah,
5 years.
yeah. And, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions before we move further? I mean, we have gone over this, and there was some deference to some numbers that would be supplied at this meeting as opposed to being available at the last meeting. Is there anything new on that?
Which numbers?
We had to vote. We were going to vote at it this meeting. We're waiting for some final numbers to come through.
Yeah, and that was the stop loss. So we have those now. They're
Okay.
firm. We actually have until the 18th to make a decision. Beyond that, they have the ability to re-rate and change their numbers. So we would be strongly encouraged to try to make a decision at tomorrow's,
Okay.
council meeting.
So that necessitates us moving on this with some
Yeah,
direct action in order to facilitate or
Correct.
qualify for that.
yeah. Everything else in your packet are the detail behind the summary.
Right.
We could be here for a long, long time if we went through all the documents, but we're happy to go through them. I think the biggest thing in here is the stop loss comparison, which is the next section. I described it, or it's described in the summary, and then the pharmacy RFP, which is going to save based on looking at retrospective claims data around 30%, and have basically no disruption to your members by staying with Servview.
Are there any questions from the committee? Open for discussion.
Then we can make a motion to approve.
That will eventually where we go. I'm just hoping this is all kind of new to some people. I just want it to settle in. If there are any specific questions or we need to get a little bit more information before we make that, I want to make sure everybody has that opportunity. Go ahead.
So this is for 2025. So if it's approved this evening and if it's approved tomorrow evening in council, how soon are employees notified after? Say there's employees that aren't really paying attention to our meetings. Will they get a letter? How are they notified of the increase?
Yeah, so open enrollment, go ahead if you want to.
I was just gonna say, open enrollment is generally the whole month of November, so they usually get an email from me right around November 1st.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess if there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion as presented on the council action sheet.
Motion to approve.
Okay. There's been a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Or make the second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve, and there is a second. One last opportunity for any discussion. If not, I'll say, everybody in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes for us to move this forward to council for tomorrow night.
Before we move on to the next item, does anybody feel the need for Scott to be at the council meeting tomorrow night?
I feel it would be a good idea.
I was gonna ask if you would please.
For the other aldermen that would
Yeah.
be here for this evening.
I don't think you'll have a lot of questions, but you may have some.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item 5. Change in the process of reviewing hiring list and elimination of the Civil Service Subcommittee. This has been talked about both at the council level and at the civil service level for some time now. There's pros and cons to this, so I'd like to just hear from the administration at this point as to why they would feel that this is necessary or why it's important for us to move on this And there's also a legal representation that was in the packet that, from Jesse about, we asked for that to happen, and Jesse did opine on it. So I just open it up to the administration to give us a little background.
I'll leave it, I'm gonna defer to Dana, because I missed last month's meeting due to the budget, and I have not really been part of bringing this forward. I've seen some of the items, but I just really haven't had much of a role in it with everything that's going on lately, so.
I know it's been talked many times before, both with Mark Liberta when he was here, with Peggy when she was here, and Peggy did bring it to the group at one point back in September of 2021, I believe. And then again, last month we talked about it. Last month you had asked for the legal opinion, which is in your packet, where Jesse does say that we do not need a civil service subcommittee. We need the civil service program, which that will not be eliminated, but we don't need a subcommittee in order to approve hiring lists. I think we talked last time, most other communities in the area do not have a subcommittee approving lists. You had also suggested, I think it was Alderman Barber that made a comment last month about being able to provide more information on how a civil service meeting normally went, or at least what a list would look like. So I did bring a list of a mock list of what we would normally take to civil service. If you want to see that, I can pass that out so that you have a better understanding.
No, until it comes on, I'll just make a comment. At this point, I am the only member of the Civil Service Committee. That's where it stands right now. Dale and I were, and Tom Trainer were the Civil Service. Tom Trainer's passing and Dale's resignation means that there's only one person on that.
There you go. I'm gonna give it one more try here. Quick little college try. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I
Yep.
can.
Well, you can. Am I on? No.
Your light's not on.
Oh, it doesn't sound like it.
Okay. I'm just gonna, yeah, thank you. I did want to say that I had been in communication with the labor attorney, and while it wasn't about that in particular, she did have some concerns about having the group because of how everything is played out with Act 10. So she actually had questioned in a conversation whether or not it was really necessary. I mean, I can certainly also request to her to opine on it, but I know that we also have the city attorney's opinion, and obviously it's it is up to the governing bodies. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Go ahead, John. I'd like to get your opinion on this as the mayor of the city.
Sure, thank you. So this was brought up numerous times along with other boards and commissions as far as streamlining city process. And this has no negative impact on any of the employees or the job postings or their positioning for and to be hired. So there is enough support and enough documentation and legal authority to eliminate this particular commission and make it more streamlined into personnel, because you're not going to miss anything. And I think with working with Dana Zahn, she came forward with a number of reasons why it would make sense to streamline, and I think we're at that point where we need to move forward. Thank you.
If Dana would, just walk us through the process that was used in civil service, where we would come to the meeting, this would be presented, we would review it. This is typically of what we would receive in that meeting.
And first, I'll mention that this is confidential at this point. These
Yes,
people would
it's
not
pink
be
paper.
open records, so
Pink
please don't
paper.
use their full name. First names only if you want to mention somebody on here, but normally if we went to civil service, this is the type of list that they would approve. We're currently looking to hire a public health nurse right now, and this would be the list that I would bring to civil service. We got, looks like 13 applications for this position. 9 people all qualified for the position. They all had their RN degree, which is really the only requirement. The 4 people at the bottom had applied through Indeed, and if any of you have used Indeed, they make it really easy to hit a button that sends a resume, but they don't go one step further and complete our online application, even though we post that they are required to do so. So the 4 that sent resumes through Indeed, I had responded back to them with a message that they needed to fill out the city application if they wanted to be considered. One of them called me on it and decided they didn't want full-time work. They only wanted part-time, so she didn't complete the application. The other 3 I never heard back from. So I would have asked civil service to exclude those 4 people at the bottom from the list, but to certify the top 9.
And typically what would happen then at that point is if the commission or anybody had the civil service group, if they had questions about any of this, they would ask, what does this mean? Not available offered dates. And then we'd ask for that kind of background, and it just typically you would respond on. We wouldn't respond to that necessarily, but if it was more complex than that or there were questions, we would ask questions of Dana, and then we would, if there were comments to be made, there would be comments made, and then we would vote to approve the list. So it's kind of a check and balance at some point. Like you said, in terms of streamlining it. My only concern is if someone, it's still within the purview of the personnel committee, they decided to set up the committee as such, as a subgroup at one point. So I think what we have to do is look at saying we no longer need that if that's the will of the group. But is there a check where, say, if a person wanted to sit in on one of those reviews just to kind of spot check it, is that available from the personnel committee to be able to see that process and just have a check and a balance on it if necessary? I'm just concerned that at some point there might be subject to some abuse, where it would be something that could be not transparent, and I don't want to have that being something that would derail any kind of streamlining. But is there a check and balance that might be available or offered through the personnel committee would be able to see these lists or see who is hired for a position along the way?
I don't see why not either, but it's not like there's necessarily going to be a list typed out. We'd have a folder with all the applications, and the applications are sent to the department head.
Wouldn't you want to keep that for the record in case there would be a lawsuit from somebody that was coming forward and saying I didn't get my due process, or I was not, I was excluded because of personal reasons, or wouldn't you want to have that as a process within what if we're going to change it and change it out, I think we should have to have some things that would protect the city.
Well, we would still have the whole packet of applications. Trying to think if you would really need to create the list. We are going to also hopefully make this all electronic through our payroll system as well, where people will apply through ADP, and ADP will keep track of all those lists for us.
And would that be available for us to see, just as a check?
I don't know enough about the ADP system yet to know what kind of reports it prints out, but I would assume so.
Because in some ways, I was told when I came on,
Yeah.
it's just kind of our role is to protect the city from, and to challenge or to question this, and to protect the city from those potential kind of circumstances where someone might sue the city.
Yeah. I think the check and balance is going to be that if you get a complaint from a citizen as to why somebody got hired over them, you could come and ask us, and we would have an explanation for that.
And that would be personnel committee as well as council.
Right.
So, okay, I just want everyone to understand what was behind it in the first place, and what the future of this would look like if how we're going to proceed with operationalizing it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those documents are always available. I think, just what I'm gathering is that Dana wouldn't necessarily have a report because there wouldn't be a need for it, but the documents for the applicants would still be there and open to personnel. And I know that the directors, obviously, too, when there's a open position, hiring position within their department, they're heavily involved as well.
Okay, don't want to monopolize this, so is there any discussion of this from the committee at this point?
Well, Mike, excuse me, I have a question of you. Since you're on the subcommittee yourself, do you ever recall an instance where you may have found an oversight or a problem that the committee was effective?
Only one, and that was brought forth by administration about the whole sensitive issue of nepotism, and that was worked through at that level, saying that we didn't see that that was a situation for nepotism, and there were enough checks and balances to proceed with that. But that was brought forth by administration to us. We would question certain things, and we got answers that satisfied the committee when that happened. But for the most part, we understood the form. We had a chance to look at it. We knew what was being said because we've worked with it, and it would be something we would act on and move forward. Once in a while, there were some issues where there were some interviews that had to happen and things like that, but that was kind of like a mute issue at that point because the hiring hadn't happened. So they had to be approved for a list to do some hiring, but so they were interviewing some folks, but that was very rare. So most of the time it was a very straightforward process. And I mean, in all honesty, if we went more than 15 minutes, it was a long meeting. Depending on, and that's like sometimes we'd have 3 or 4 different positions that we were reviewing to go over. So, like I said, it was more of a check on the hiring process, and I think that can be worked out or be with a workaround that would be allowing, like you said, if it's published and it's open, transparent, that would be something we could review as a personnel committee and understand who's getting hired, and if there's a name that looks different or looks like it's similar to somebody, you might want to ask a question, but that's the only foreseeable thing I see. So.
Question, and please correct me if I'm not understanding this right. So, like, if a list came like this to us, if we had this on the personnel committee, wouldn't that list then be subject to public record? If it would be like in the packet? Because my concern with that is most applicants don't want their current employer to be aware that they're looking and seeking employment for fear of retaliation and being let go from their current position. I feel that would be hurtful to us in that aspect.
Well, you said it would be public anyway, or it would be out there on the database.
Unfortunately, when we've done civil service, it does become an open record because it's taped and anybody can have that. But technically, it shouldn't necessarily be open record unless they're a finalist.
Like this was pink, so this wouldn't even go anywhere.
Right.
Right.
This was clearly a document
Right.
that was in-house only with it's confidential.
Well, that I completely understand for this evening, but I'm talking about moving forward. If we were to discuss this as an item on the agenda for personnel, then it wouldn't be pink.
It could be pink.
It could be.
Well, this is the personnel committee.
Right.
Esther, I thought it was. But what I'm trying to say, Mike, maybe in that clarifying it well enough, is I just don't want it. If it came pink like this, that would be a great idea. And then we'd have to turn these in. But would it be recorded while we're discussing the names, too? That's another
Closed
thought I
session.
just had. Closed session and pink.
That's typically the way it would be handled.
Because do you understand what Alderman Barber, what I'm trying to say is people don't want to see their current employers know that they're
Oh.
out there looking.
I totally agree.
Okay, thank you.
This isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that we had ever really openly shared that information for that reason. And then so we wouldn't really plan to do that moving forward either unless the committee wants us to continue to bring forward reports but provide them to all of you. And then I would think that for confidentiality purposes, we would go into closed and do a pink sheet if that's something that the personnel committee believes is necessary.
Having been on the committee for 7 years for this one, I would say that if administration has a question that they would like to get us to be aware of, like when the nepotism issue surfaced, you would bring it to the personnel committee and we could go to closed session to discuss it. I don't know if the committee wants to see every list for every hire at this point, but that would be up to the committee. But just saying in the future that, like, there might be, and there probably will be, some instances where you want to bring it to personnel and go into a closed session to have it reviewed as part of the hiring process. And I would be comfortable with that, but that's not my call at this moment, though.
I personally feel it's not necessary and again, this is in my own opinion, that it's not necessary for us as a committee to see every single applicant for every position open throughout the city. I mean, that could be a meeting in itself. It could go well past midnight with all the different positions. I mean, you're talking positions on the DPW. I'm not sure if that would include the positions at the library, but I mean, there's a lot of different positions that, do we have the time? Do we want to spend the time?
All employees. I mean, it would affect all employees are subject to this review.
No, not management or police or fire. It's just the non-rep.
Dispatchers, things like that.
Yes.
Would be normally. Any further discussion, please?
Excuse me. So, if we vote, we would be voting on eliminating the subcommittee. Is that correct?
Where did I have the motion? Dana, could you read the motion? I don't have it. It's right here somewhere. Oh, wait.
Recommended motion.
I have it right here. The motion I will read is the council action requested motion. Motion to approve. Oh, no, that's the benefit program. Okay. I don't have that motion.
It's on this page.
Oh, the whole memorandum?
Yeah, it's on the bottom of page 5. I think you have it right there, Mike. Oh, no, you're not.
Oh, okay. The recommended motion is for the Common Council to change the process of reviewing and hiring lists from the Civil Service Subcommittee to the Human Resource Manager and Director of Administration, to eliminate Civil Service Subcommittee, to amend the Personnel Committee ordinance as deemed necessary by the City Attorney, and to adjust the Civil Service System Personnel Administration Program accordingly.
I'll make the motion to recommend to Common Council.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded as per the memorandum. Is there any further discussion? And I'm just going to throw out again, my thought is with input from the Personnel Committee, could that be added? It would be you two that would make with possible input from the Personnel Committee.
Is this an appropriate time to also mention that as alders, we also are welcome to sit in on the majority of interviews that go on within the city, if I'm correct on that, which is another balance and check that between the 6 of us, any of us can sit in on
exactly.
interviews. I have in the past.
Would you amend your motion to say that?
Yes, I'd amend the motion to say that.
Would you go along with amending the second?
Yes.
I think that about covers it, my concerns, so thank you for that. I will now call for a vote on the motion that has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion has passed.
Dana, would you like these back?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we come to the special add-ons. VA, new business. I received a message that was sent from Dale Weichel. I think everybody here received it or should be aware of it.
Oh, yeah.
That Dale has resigned the company. He has turned in his resignation last week, and as of right now, that is accepted by the mayor, so Dale has officially resigned.
Was it last week, Mike, or was I personally received it late last evening?
Sunday, 13, it's dated 13.
Friday, he submitted the letter of resignation, I believe. It was the 10th. Was it dated the 10th?
I can, if it's okay, I'll look on my phone or in my email.
Yeah, so I got
Friday was the 11th.
Friday the 11th.
From him.
Yes.
It said Sunday, October,
That was the
13.
email.
at 9:06.
Right,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I thought as well.
Forwarded
Thank
from
you.
other people, so.
So we didn't receive anything except forwarded emails. And so I guess that would be the email that was sent out yesterday, correct? That would be the,
Dale sent that to somebody that he had resigned.
In the body of his email, it appears to me that he is telling us, the Personnel Committee, that he is dissatisfied and that he's no longer going to be, he's going to resign.
Okay.
That he was directing it at us, not at Mayor Nelson
Oh,
or to Kelly.
Okay, Dana, if I could chime in, you've got a document there, right? Can I see the document? Kind of help move this along. So we've got it dated on Sunday, October 13, 2024 at 9:06 p.m. That was one of the forwards. I guess if you're looking at this as far as to put down a date, why don't you just use that and go with it? I mean, the document's the document. I think we're looking at semantics as far as exactly when this came about. He authored it, and looking at the exact date and time, looks like the 14th at 9:01 a.m. You know, this was forwarded from Mr. Budney. It's just been forwarded around, but the bottom line is he authored it. We have a hard document here that'll be used as permanent record, and I think you're good with the date and time.
so it has officially been accepted by the city at this point, the resignation.
Was it provided to anyone outside of this personnel committee?
No.
It was provided and accepted when it was forwarded to me, and I took that as the document with Mr. Weichel's request, and I accepted it immediately.
Thank you for that. But what that means now is we are leaderless.
Could we,
So we cannot vote on
Right.
anything tonight because this is not an agenda item, it's only a discussion item.
could we nominate,
No.
not without voting on it, could we nominate to be voted on the
We can-
next meeting?
We can ask that it be put on the agenda for the
The
next.
administrative rules specifically say that if we lose one of those positions, that it will be on the agenda the next month to reelect.
So the idea is if anybody wants to step forward to be the chair of this austere group,
Can you make a recommendation?
not today.
But it wouldn't be voted on.
I think you have to wait till the next
Next
meeting.
month.
Then what's the difference if you ask versus if you recommend?
I'm asking you all to consider
Oh.
being the chair.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification.
How many do we need for a quorum? 5?
No, because the administrative rules for personnel actually say that we need a majority of the seated positions.
Okay, so
So right now, we only have 5 people. We need 3 people to be here.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a concern if someone wasn't able to make it.
Correct.
With being as thin as we are, we
Yep.
wouldn't have anybody.
And because I'm new, Alderman Barber, are you the vice chair currently?
I am the vice chair currently.
So just as a scenario, say the vice chair, if he were to, I'm just using this as a scenario, nothing can be done tonight, fully understand. If the vice chair were to be voted in at a future meeting, we would also then need that position for the next meeting of vice chair too to be on that agenda,
Correct.
in case that were to
That
occur.
would be a vacancy then.
We would just put on the agenda election of officers, so if you make
Yeah.
Alderman Barber chair, then you would vote for a
We
vice
wouldn't
chair.
know that till.
Right.
So we'd
Well,
have to-
right, but
we'd
just
have
to
put
cover all
both items on
bases.
the agenda.
So we don't have.
We
to
don't
have the
list
vice
it
chair
separately, we
tonight.
just put on election of officers,
Okay,
so.
that's how
yeah.
it's handled, okay.
So if,
But I would like others to consider the opportunity.
I would like to just ask for some clarification, Dana. It's just a memory that I have. This happened several
Mayor.
years ago.
John?
Mayor.
We nominated like 2 people, and they both said, I don't want to do it. Now, is that acceptable? Once you're on the committee, you have a responsibility. It's the way I see it, personally. And that being a chair is something that on committees at times changes, that you don't always have one stagnant chair all the time, chairperson, that the responsibility changes. We rotate the responsibility. So my question is, if someone was to nominate anyone and that person says, I'm not interested, is that acceptable by the rules?
I've never seen us force somebody into taking it if they didn't want it.
Well, but everybody should be aware that sitting on a committee also carries responsibilities, is
Yeah.
my point. Purely-
There's,
I mean,
there's also the consideration, and I don't know if everybody knows this, maybe I'm wrong, but I think so. We serve on committees as aldermen at the behest of the mayor. So based on the fact that there's elections that happen and people come and go in an election cycle, that might influence the stability of a particular board. Say, if it were, the chairperson was an alderman, they might only serve a limited number of time before you'd have to do this again based on an election. So I know 2 of us are up for election in the next cycle. So you only, that's why it's kind of nice to have a civilian leader because it's not subject to that as opposed to whatever I am.
Alderman, are you trying to get out of this?
What?
I'm teasing you. I said, are you trying to get out of this? But
No, I'm just saying that is the way
Rule.
you might have in
You're
some,
right.
you might have to do an election in 4 months again.
Great, and I respect that, Alderman. However, look at what just happened at 9 o'clock last night. A civilian could be in that position, and then maybe they decide, wake up one morning, and they decide they don't even want to be on the committee anymore. Anything could happen at any time, realistically, you know.
Or if you don't wake up the next morning.
Ooh, let's not say that.
It seems to me that since I've been on a committee, we've had chair people that have had long.
Right, Dale had
Longevity.
30 plus, I
Yeah,
believe he said.
and then I forget
You would
their name,
alternate
the
between vice chair and chair.
Carol did it for quite a few years. Dale did it for many years. And if I remember right, I don't remember if you were ever chair. I think you were vice chair, correct?
vice chair, yeah.
Yeah, so I know you led some of the meetings. But
These are all considerations for next month. That's basically where we're at.
It's unique to have somebody as the chair of any boards and commissions for that lengthy of a time in the city history,
Yeah.
to my understanding, right? I mean, it was wonderful of that time that was served, but I'm just saying, that's a rarity within the city.
Or the alderman that was unseated could volunteer as a civilian.
Odds are that usually doesn't happen.
If there is a vacancy and if the mayor so decides to appoint that renegade.
So being unclear on the procedures, I wanted to be able to discuss the fact of there being a lack of communication between Dale, the chair, and the administration. And I was hoping that we could discuss that perhaps there could be a bridge or a discussion between the administration and Dale that Dale may want to reconsider. Only reason I say that is I personally have the utmost of respect for him for all the experience that he brings to us. Every time we have a meeting, you can just see how his mind thinks and how he draws on prior many years ago experience and brings everything together. So we are really going to feel him leaving. That's what I think, and I as a member was wondering if we could take or make a recommendation that our administration could contact him and see whether or not there might be a discussion of communications, because this is communications. That's what this is. I know he put some things in here that I would think were not appropriate, but
Dale, over the years, I kind of think that Dale has made a decision, and we should honor that in a lot of ways. I mean, I've known Dale, and he was off ill for a period of time. His wife needs some convalescence work right now, so I think it's his decision. I think we could just say something like, "You are welcome back to the committee or to the personnel committee as a layperson."
But
that's always an option.
But for instance, some of him commenting about not being seated at labor negotiations.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, it may not be appropriate any longer. He may at one point had been doing that, but given the current climate, they may not want somebody sitting there as on the negotiating table. So somebody should tell him that, so he doesn't think that he's being ignored. That's what I was thinking. All the little
Dale
ticks.
made a decision for personal reasons, and with some of the things he's citing, I have experience with, and I know I have never heard in the personnel committee where we have been part of a negotiation. At certain times, we would get an update from the negotiating team that would give us updates along the way, but in terms of being a part of that process, that hasn't happened. And it might have happened under previous administrations back 5, 10, or I mean, not even 10, because I've been here 10, but beyond 10 years, that might have happened where they were more involved. But it's more of the updates along the way as to what's happening and how things are proceeding. And then at the end, we would get the final, what was negotiated. And we trust the administration to do that in good faith. They know the budgets as well as we do. So, I don't know. That would be subject to a discussion at the next meeting.
Were you done?
Do you?
I was just going to say there's a thing that's called an exit interview, and I would think in the case like this would be appropriate. But
If he wants to do that.
I'll state what I was going to say in just a moment, but is a volunteer position an exit interview for unpaid volunteer position? I've personally never heard of that. Not that I'm disagreeing with you, but that's just my personal thought. Is an outsider being new to this commission and honestly not knowing Mr. Weichel for the years that some of you have, to me, it was pretty black and white that he wants no part of this committee anymore or serving for the city. He did his time, years well appreciated, and so forth. I was quite surprised by the content of what was emailed to us last evening. Very surprised. I personally didn't necessarily see it written in a professional way or manner, more of a manner of frustration, again, as an outsider. But given that he aired his grievances quite loud and clear in that resignation letter, I don't know that certain people would feel comfortable if he served on a board and commission, now that it's out there how he feels about certain people and employees of the city and so forth, that would be a good fit any longer for him to serve on any boards or commissions. And that's just my own personal thought. I don't know him like the rest, and if that's how it is, I wish him the best of luck and thank him for his years of service that he gave. But to me, that was black and white, loud and clear. He's done. I wish his wife health and healing. My mom had recent surgery like that, and it's not fun. So he's got some, and so you know it too. So, but I mean, that's just as an outsider. Again, I didn't get to know Mr. Weichel as I'm new to the commission and so forth. But just my opinion as an outsider, I had to read that about 4 times last night because the first time I read it, my jaw dropped. So, with that, I'll yield.
Well, thank you for your perspective. Makes me think a little broader than how I was seeing this.
I think Dale, if he wanted to be part of it, would definitely know how to reach out. And we've never done that I'm aware of, where if someone resigns, we've tried to change an opinion. And there's been a lot of people with a lot of service. But I think if Dale wanted to be a part of it, he would know how to come back in and just submit to be a member of it after this. But his resignation is kind of, he self-terminated in that sense.
I think we should put out the option that he's always welcome back, because just losing his wealth of experience of what's gone on for 38 years, having worked in human resources myself for over 45 years, that experience or knowledge is really helpful in conducting or chairing a committee like this. If you knew some of the people that come in as employees and stuff, which, I see a group of people out there, I don't know very many, I maybe know 2 or 3 people.
I would think that could be handled possibly through the Personnel Committee by a letter to Dale, thanking him for his service, and just saying, I don't know what the city would do, but just have a thank you for your service. If you'd like to come back and be interested in it, the Personnel Committee could accept that and offer that.
Yeah, I was surprised that with the tone of the letter,
The city wouldn't have to as such.
with the tone of the letter, that he, with his knowledge and is of what's going on and how to proceed with things, that there wasn't a step where he sat down with the administration and said, hey, these things are really bugging me. I really
that
think
didn't
some of
happen.
the things are a problem.
We would talk around the edges of some meetings afterwards, and Dale would have those kind of concerns that things weren't going, according to the way he liked things to go. But he always honored what we decided. But I don't think he ever expressed that to anybody prior to just submitting a letter.
I never had a conversation with Mr. Weigel, ever.
So I'd like to say let's carry this over.
Can I ask one thing? If that's okay? Would it be the same process as anybody who wants to volunteer on a board and commission?
Sure.
Mr. Weichel then would have to go through the
He would
process
submit
of
an
reapplying,
application if he wanted to
that's
come back.
subject to mayoral approval, and then
if
it
there
goes
was
to
a
common
vacancy.
council. He wouldn't just be able to walk right on, just like no one else is able to, just for clarification purposes, right? And so I'm understanding the process. The process would be handled as it is, any other volunteer position within the city. He'd need to reapply. It would go to the HR, I believe it goes to first, or I'm not
Well,
sure.
it goes to the clerk's office.
The clerk's office.
Yep.
I know it gets sent to us, the mayor reviews it, and then it gets added to the council agenda. So it would be, just so we're all on the same page, it would be that same process again for Mr. Weichel, if I'm understanding.
I would think so, because I know that there were board members on one board that had resigned from that board to serve on another board, and they had to be reappointed and apply for it.
There's the process.
Okay, thank you.
My position, I came in as an appointment from Mayor Taylor at that point, and when I became an alderman after that, I was appointed because it had already been on the committee. So my appointment is through a mayoral appointment as an alderman, but not as a volunteer. I initially came to it as a volunteer when Tom Taylor put me on.
How many years now is this for you?
06?
Oh, wow.
I think you said 06 one year. I think that's when Tom Taylor was around.
I was not aware of that. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, let's hold this
I got
over.
One
Okay.
question, and maybe an odd question, but who's the big Kodiak grizzly?
Me.
I'm looking at that.
That was an email from an earlier period in my life.
That sounds
So, Mike, what are we holding over?
Okay, discussion of an election.
Okay, I understand, okay.
We have to bring it back to make an election, and
So we are the mayor had made it perfectly clear that although there was not a resignation addressed to him or to Kelly, he is accepting the email.
Right.
Okay, so that's done. It's a done
That's,
job
that's
that way.
done, but as,
So then Dale is a civilian, other than
yeah.
okay, all right.
Well, a civilian, no one that served many years.
Oh yes, yes.
And I think it would be appropriate, because just from the personnel committee, to just send him a note, an email note response back saying, we've appreciated the years of service and commitment you've made to us, and if you want to come back, there's a process in place to let that happen, so.
And you're assigning that to somebody?
No, I'm not doing anything tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
Not doing it, you aren't gonna get me into that. Okay. Moving on for VB1 would be the VBO business. The first item under this category would be the city attorney job description update. That has come up in the past, and it was supposed to, in theory, be on another agenda, but because of the workloads and things that are going on, it didn't make it. But I'd like to get an update from administration on where this city attorney job description stands.
It has since been tabled. The city's not doing anything with it at this point.
Okay, so we approved it at one meeting at the council. Didn't we talk about that?
I thought it was tabled
Oh, it was
across
tabled-
the board.
It was tabled as by the council.
Yep.
Not administration, the council tabled that, okay.
Yeah.
So does that answer the question as to why we haven't, it's been tabled with no future, it's out there, it's been created, but no action has been taken on that.
Right.
So until such time as they might want to do a further action, that would be going to council at that point. We would have nothing, that might be something that comes up in the future. I'm not sure when or where, how. But it's an option that it might be something that would be up for further review.
And what we were discussing was whether or not we're going to approve a job description to hire somebody other than to have a contractor do it.
That decision is,
That was what I thought our rule was.
I think it was more of a discussion point in trying to create a job description in case we wanted to go that route.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, say that. And it was clear that you guys didn't want to, which is why we didn't do any
that's
action.
one big thing Dale was in on. Dale was against it.
Mhm.
Not everybody. I wasn't against it. I was open-minded. I'm sure I could say that for a lot of people too.
I'm happy to revisit it if that's of interest. I had picked up, and I could be wrong, that there was no interest in it, and that's why I have not pushed it any further than that. There was, as Alderman Barber had,
Mike, if you could announce it, 7:12, I'm leaving.
Okay.
Thank you.
Michelle Eichmann Alderwoman Michelle Eichmann has left the chambers at 7:12.
I'm sorry.
No, Kelly, I recall that Dale was very adamant against it. And we don't need to go into his reasoning, but other ones were. I myself was looking at it budgetary-wise.
Me too.
And the sensibility of having, I know that's, we'll probably override it, but also the mayor having somebody that he could just consult.
Right.
Which is invaluable if ever been in the position.
Right, and it's not just the mayor, but there's department heads as well that are continually looking for that counsel for.
Real counsel versus having to pick up a phone and run up a tab.
I think
Right.
that's available for committee members as well, as long as it's pertaining to city business. I know I've contacted Jesse through having to go through his office to contact Jesse about legal matters, and then it's a client privilege,
Okay.
but that would be available in-house. And like you said, again, the budgetary consideration would have to be a consideration for the future if this ever is brought forward again. At this point, it's a tabled issue, so I wanted to get that update out there.
Right, but to your point, it doesn't have to be if a member or all of the members are interested in talking about it again. but again, to Alderman Barber's point, it was here's an idea, because we felt that it would be something that would be financially prudent and help us to determine if this is the appropriate job description. But beyond that, it wasn't anything.
So at this point, it's just, unless there's a discussion or, a request to have it brought forward again at the next meeting, because this is just an update, that's all this is. But unless there's something that would come of that, I see no reason to ask that it be on an agenda at this point. Okay, moving on to VB2, the employee survey update. The administration.
Right. So I do believe that we had discussions about the employee survey responses, and Mr. Weichel was out sick, I think, or,
Surgery.
okay, having surgery, so he wasn't available. I'm sorry?
Medical issues
Okay.
around surgery.
Yeah. So my understanding is that he was not at that time when we had discussed it. And I know that Dana had sent out information. Did you even print it for him?
Yes.
Yeah. After the second meeting, when he had requested information about it. And what I can say is that we did take the information that it provided to us very seriously, and we did actually have, as a result, a strategic planning group to discuss our benefits, which was a major source of, identified concern by staff. So we did discuss that. We've had some training since then, and we are. I promote all the time that I've got an open door policy, and I think that when employees do come and talk with me, I think that they understand that it's not just words, that I truly do live by that. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm trying to remember all of it, and I'm going to look at Dana for some jump in here. And
One of the things
Well,
I
wait.
remember is the fact that we instituted kind of a option for departments. If they have issues or if there's a group that want to come forward, we ask that they come forward and come to the personnel, and we would have an agenda for that to happen. Now, I'm sure that was sent to the departments in terms of their union representation and whoever else would be wanting to maybe make that kind of a presentation. But as of right now, we're not aware of anybody that's responded to come up and say, okay, we'd like better communication with the personnel committee and therefore the council. And that hasn't come into play at all, but that was something that we did act on as a result, because one of the things was, the criticism was that we're not open. And so we offered it for ourselves to be open to that.
We're going to have a department head rotating through our.
correct, yeah, and that was approved at here and also council. And I think it just comes down to when do you want to start that. I know that I personally had some conversations with staff, in fact, in department head meetings, where I put it out there that if you're interested or you have a staff member that's interested, please let us know so we can put you on the agenda. But there's not been a lot of interest in staff members to sit on another board or board meeting, if you will. And I guess if they don't have something that they're really concerned about, they're probably not going to do that, unfortunately.
I would be interested in seeing what kind of communications were given to the employees in terms of the results of the survey, both the good news and the bad news, so to speak, so that at least they know their ideas. If they said you know, if you had an item where, I don't know how the service, if it was agree or disagree or how it was rated, each item, but if you had a statement and they said they disagree, you know, let's just pick working conditions or I can speak with my supervisor very easily and they say disagree, that we put that out there, that a lot of people are saying they can't speak with their supervisor. I guess from my viewpoint in the past when I've done employee surveys, if we didn't give out that information to the employees, the next time you come out with a survey, they're going to say, they didn't tell us anything about the old ones, so we're not going to put a lot of work into these things.
Employees were given access to the whole survey, so they saw everything that you were able to see.
Okay.
I don't know if Kelly talked to any department heads, but I know I talked to several department heads that had some concerning comments in the survey about communications, and they were going to go back and try to have some more group meetings, that type of thing.
Okay.
I haven't heard complaints about it since, so I'm hoping some of that was rectified. And there are other things that we've done because of the survey, such as, I think you know that last year we added the second dental plan because people wanted orthodontic coverage. So that came out of the survey. We added the 2 different Roth plans right now because that came out of the survey. So I think we've tried to do all the things that we could handle financially because of the survey. A lot of the other complaints all come down to economics, wage type issues that we can't address.
Right. Yeah.
I would suggest doing maybe a summary after you've done a number of these things, just to reinforce that things were done and that we took their comments seriously and did these things. Because it may have been for one particular group and the other group didn't hear about it because their group wasn't as interested. It's just kind of, you got to keep reminding
What's actually been done and how we're
actually
listening to them.
It's so easy for them to say, well, I put it down, but nobody did anything about it.
Right, right. And I don't know, since we're talking about it, if there's any interest, but there's been some changes since then, and it might make sense to reissue something, maybe not as long, but maybe a condensed version of it. And
Yeah, maybe as a brief recap of
Yeah.
what's been done, and just to make sure if you know if they weren't involved in that if they're interested in adding their input more for that or details, it may
Right.
stir up something in the department for discussion. That would
Right.
be helpful.
Yeah, I like your idea of the summary. Makes sense, and I think what you're saying is accurate, and I don't really fault anybody. It's really easy to not see what's occurring
Yeah.
in all the other areas, and I think it makes sense to come back and say, we got this feedback, and here's how we've been trying to answer it.
Because it's so much easier for the disenchanted employees that speak loudly and say, well, nothing happened here, nothing happened here, and to get the people who were involved and said, yeah, this was done and that was done, so they can defend their position and be advocates for
Right.
the city rather than somebody who's constantly grumbling about this isn't being done or that's not being done and things like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree because, like I said, it's easy to not get the full picture of everything, especially if you're involved in certain things that take all of your attention.
Well, and because doing an employee, so that's a lot of work. That's a big project. And if we don't get any, and if we don't take that advice and help, employees say, well, they don't listen to us. And if you do, then that just increases the satisfaction level of the whole organization.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the suggestion. It'll be
Okay,
easy
I
to
think
implement.
we'll move on then. If there's any further discussion on these,
Did you want to add the compensation study?
what?
Did you want to do a B3 on the compensation study, and we can just kind of clear that as well?
I'd like to probably carry that over to the next meeting.
Okay.
As an agenda item.
Okay.
That deserves some time and some consideration and
Mm-hmm.
dialogue with that.
Okay.
Okay, item 6 is the staffing report. That's in the packet.
I do have 2 additional things to add to the report that you had in your packet. We did have a light equipment operator resign last week, so we have another opening for that. Hopefully we'll find some plow drivers before the snow hits. And just today, we had one of our engineering tech 4s, which is our higher level technician, put in his 2-week notice. Ali?
Did he say why he was going to move on?
He is going to Milwaukee County DOT, I believe, as an engineer. So it's an upgraded, somewhat promotion.
And what was that title? I didn't get it.
Engineer.
Engineering Tech 4 is what he was here.
Oh, I thought you were referring to what he's moved over to be.
No. So there's a vacancy there too now. Any carryover lists for any of these that are out there? Or
No.
would it be offered to employees first?
That I don't know. We have to talk about whether we're filling it right away. Ali's been here, I think, 6 years. So yeah, there's no list.
Okay, let's, any other discussion on the vacancy list? Okay. Item 7, future agenda items. We have the Personnel Committee vacancies and election. We have a follow-up to the employee survey. And we have the comp study follow-up. So those are the recommendations for the next agenda. In addition to, and I just want to maybe make an off-record comment regarding Dale's inference or reference to certain things. It's my understanding that it's a working relationship between the administration and the committee. I mean, I personally do not see where I know enough about what goes on day to day here, not to have to rely on the administration to bring things forward for our agenda. We can suggest things that we'd like to see, but I think it's a two-way street with what they know needs to be addressed, the legal, the law changes, or the whatever we have to comply with in the future.
Benefits.
So it's a working relationship, and I hope it continues to be that, and see more of that in terms of how we understand what's coming down the pike, what things are happening. There's been at times we have to table things because we totally understand them, and we don't have that. So we just table stuff is not good either. But to at least be aware of what's coming down the line and have an understanding of anticipating it. That's I think what we have to strive for, and I think that's us as well as the administration needs to have that better dialogue in that sense. So that's just a brief Mike Barber.
And I'd just like to add to that maybe we could make a list of our table items. Sometimes things get past us, and before we know it, it's been a year and we haven't revisited something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, that's handled procedurally by us tabling something and saying when we'd like to see it come back. If you
Okay.
table it, it's indefinite, is my understanding.
Yeah.
So until someone would ask to bring it back, it just is out there. But if we can say table for the second meeting in October, or the first meeting for us would be
Or the only meeting in October, or whatever. Yeah. I know what you're doing. You're going off of the council meetings.
Well, but there are a lot of things that we talk about. For instance, employees rotating, coming as part of the committee to get exposure. I have no idea what we did with it.
Well, that's,
You know, I mean, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying, some of those that loose hanging information just isn't really.
and that I think
It's
would be up to
sweep back
the,
up.
that'd be up to the chair to kind of keep a running total of that. And with the help from the committee, obviously. But I think that's covered pretty much with asking for a follow-up to the employee survey next week or next month as to what we can do or what has been done, where it is, and maybe make recommendations. I think the workload is subsiding except for all the things you have to do, but the budget is over. So I think we can
Sort
have
of.
time with that dialogue, and that would be my hope is how we improve. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. The next meeting date is set for November 18th of 2024, and I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're gone.